හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Saturday the 13th of January 2024. To the party of Davos, President Wickremesinghe leaves to Switzerland to address the World Economic Forum in Davos. One step closer, the PUCSL receives the CEB's proposed electricity tariff revision. Says steps will be taken to revise the tariffs. The race begins. Sri Lanka's political atmosphere heats up as parties deliberate on potential presidential candidates.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා මේ රටේ ජනාධිපතිවරට පත් කරනවාමයි. One man only the රනිල්.
සජාතික පක්ෂයෙන් ඉදිරිපත් වෙච්ච පමණින් පොදු අපේක්ෂකෙක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
මිනිස්සු කල්පනා කරන්න වෙනවා මේ වැඩේ කාටද ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා.
නව නැගිටීමක් අවශ්‍ය නව චින්තනයක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
නියම මෝල්ට් සාරය සමග මැලිබන් මෝල්ට් දැන් රුපියල් 750ක් පමණයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana First at 9. I'm AdaDerana joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now in your top story tonight, the Ceylon Electricity Board submitted the necessary proposals to reduce the electricity tariffs to the Public Utilities Commission. According to the CEB, they estimate a surplus of 23.73 billion rupees and added that the surplus can be used to reduce average tariffs by 3.34%. In response, the Public Utilities Commission stated that necessary steps will be taken to revise the electricity tariffs as per the provisions in the Ceylon Electricity Board Act and the Public Utilities Commission Act.
In the proposal handed over to the Public Utilities Commission, the Ceylon Electricity Board stated it analysed all possible scenarios to approach the best estimate of expenditure and revenue, considering a number of factors including existing tariffs, availability of coal and oil fuel stocks, future fuel prices and hydro inflow variations. The state power supplier stated that scheduled plant outages, an envisioned economic crisis resulting in the reduction of energy demand and sales, adjusted expenses of transmission and distribution, various policy instructions of the government to derive the bulk supply tariff and end-user tariff proposals were also considered by them. According to the CEB, they estimate a surplus of 23.73 billion rupees and added that the surplus can be used for the reduction of average tariff by 3.34%. The CEB stated the new tariff proposal has been prepared with the intention of granting relief to low-income vulnerable communities and the entities of economically important businesses based on policy instructions of Ministry of Power and Energy. Accordingly, a surplus has been allocated to all the consumer categories. As per the proposal of the CEB, electricity tariffs in the domestic category for consumers using less than 30 units is proposed to be reduced by rupee to 11 rupees per unit. Further, the tariff charged per unit for the units consumed between 31 and 60, which currently stands at 30 rupees, is proposed to be reduced to 27 rupees. Meanwhile, in response, the Public Utilities Commission stated that necessary steps will be taken to revise the electricity tariffs as per the provisions of the Ceylon Electricity Board Act and the Public Utilities Commission Act.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe left for Switzerland earlier this morning to attend the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, which is scheduled to be held from the 15th to the 18th of January in the Swiss town of Davos. The forum, which is aimed at restoring collective agency and reinforcing the fundamental principles of transparency, consistency and accountability among leaders, will convene with the participation of over 100 governments, all major international organizations and the forum's 1,000 partner companies. The sessions of the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum are expected to feature the latest proposals for the progress on areas such as global security, trade, economic growth and jobs.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe left the island early this morning for a 12-day stay in the Swiss town of Davos to attend the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. The forum is scheduled to be held from January 15 to 18th in Davos under the theme Rebuilding Trust. The meeting welcomes over 100 governments, all major international organizations and the forum's 1,000 partner companies, as well as civil society leaders, foremost experts, youth change makers, social entrepreneurs and the media. The annual meeting of the World Economic Forum 2024 aims to restore collective agency and reinforce the fundamental principles of transparency, consistency and accountability among leaders. Throughout the week, sessions will feature the latest proposals for progress in global security, trade, economic growth, jobs, climate and nature action, energy transition, technological disruption and health and well-being. Top political leaders taking part include China's Premier Li Qiang, France's President Emmanuel Macron, European Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen, as well as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Meanwhile, heads of international organizations taking part in the meeting include UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, World Bank Group's President Ajay Banga, and North Atlantic Treaty Organization Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. In the meantime, President Ranil Wickremesinghe is also set to leave for Uganda on the 18th of January to take part in the 19th Summit of the Non-Aligned Movement.
Now taking you to the latest weather developments, the Department of Meteorology forecasts that the prevailing inclement weather is expected to subside from today onwards. Meanwhile, a landslide was reported in the Badalkumbura area this morning. The Disaster Management Center revealed that 21 families were evacuated from the area before the earth slip.
Several districts continue to receive heavy rainfall over the past few days. However, our correspondents confirm that the flooding in Athulgama, Anuradhapura is gradually decreasing. However, 500 acres of paddy fields still remain inundated. In the meantime, the inundation of the Nasavantiya area in Batiklo is also receding. Against this backdrop, a landslide was reported from the Varadolavatte estate in Badalkumbura this morning. According to the Disaster Management Center, 21 families have been evacuated from the area before the earth slip. Meanwhile, in the Kaudula reservoir, a boat carrying 2 fishermen capsized. The fishermen were subsequently reported missing. One fisherman was rescued, while the corpse of the other was recovered yesterday. In the meantime, the Department of Meteorology emphasized that rainfall is expected to subside from today onwards.
Now, in the latest political developments, the United National Party held its maiden election rally today, where a resolution was passed declaring President Ranil Wickremesinghe as the UNP's candidate for the upcoming presidential election. Addressing the rally, former UNP parliamentarian P. Harrison claims that the SLPP and several other parties have already decided to support the president during the upcoming election.
The maiden election rally of the United National Party aiming the 2024 presidential election was held in Galle today. During the rally, a resolution to name incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe as UNP's candidate for the presidential election was passed.
පොට්ටුවට බයින්න එපා. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයට බනින්න එපා. ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණට බයින්න එපා. මේ ඔක්කොම ඕන කියලායි රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා කියන්නේ අපිට රටක් හැටියට නැගිටින්න. එහෙනම් ඒ අය බණි අපි බනින්න එපා. හැබැයි ඒ අය කියන ඒවා පිළිගන්න එපා. ඒකයි වැදගත්. ජනතාව සහ රට ඉස්සරහට එන තත්ත්වයටපත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මේක අවුරුද්දක් වගේ බොහොම කෙටි කාලයක් තුළ තමයි රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා මේ තත්ත්වයටපත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා 2024 ජනාධිපති තරඟට යන්නේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂ නායක හැටියට නෙමෙයි. මේ රටේ සමස්ත ජනතාවගේ සහයෝගය ඇතිව අද පොදු ජන එක්සත් පෙරමුණේ ඒ සියලුම කණ්ඩායම් මේ වෙනකොටත් තීන්දුව කරලා ඉවරයි. ඊළඟ ජනාධිපති මැතිවරණේ අපි සහයෝගය දෙන්නේ වෙන කාටවත් නෙමෙයි. රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහට කියන එක ඒ සූදානම් වෙලා ඉවරයි.
රජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස ගැන මම වැඩි කතා කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද අපි පහුගිය දවස්වල පොඩි කතාවක් යවුවා පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයක් එනවා කියලා. පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයක් එනවා කියපු ගමන් අම්බලන්ගොඩින් ශාන් විජේලාල් මහත්තයා ජනවාරි මාසේ පළවෙනිදම අරගෙන ඒ මිනිස්සයා මාරුවේ දැම්මා. තවත් අය පොලිමේ අරගෙන ලෑස්ති වෙනවා. හරි දැන් එක්කෙනයි දෙන්නයි මේක උඩට ගෙනියනවා කියලා. බලාගෙන ඉන්න මහත්තයෝ ඔයාටවත් ජනාධිපතිවරණයට ඉල්ලන්න බැරි වෙන මට්ටමට ඔයාගේ ඉන්න සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ മന്ത്രിවරු ටික සේරම ඇවිල්ලා මේ රනිල් වික්‍රම වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමාත් එක්ක එකට පහදු වෙනවා. මේ රටේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න පුළුවන් අය දෙන්නෙක් නැහැ. එකම එක නායකයා ඉන්නේ. රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා පමණයි කියලා මම තමුන්නාසලට කියනවා මිත්‍රවරු. නැවතත් අත්දැක බැලීම් කරන්න මිනිස්සු ලෑස්ති නැහැ.
මම කැට තියලා කියන්නම් ඔබට 20යි 24 මේ අවුරුද්දේ නොවැම්බර් මාසෙට ඉස්සරලා ඡන්ද ලක්ෂ 100ක ජනවරමක් එක්කලා අපේ නායක වර්තමාන ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා මේ රටේ ජනාධිපතිවරයාට පත් කරනවාමයි. One man only the Ranil.
Now, meanwhile, independent MP Partli Champika Ranavika highlights that the SLPP and its supporting parties must agree to accept the nomination of President Ranil Wickremesinghe if he is to succeed in securing the common candidacy of an alliance between those parties. Meanwhile, State Minister of Investment Promotion and SLPP MP Dilum Amunugama is of the view that the President should be the common candidate since he pioneered Sri Lanka's economic recovery. Now, let's hear what Sri Lanka's leading politicians had to say about the elections looming ahead.
සජාතික පක්ෂයෙන් ඉදිරිපත් වෙච්ච පමණින් පොදු අපේක්ෂකෙක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද ඒ සජාතික පක්ෂයට එහෙම ලොකු ජනපදනමක් රටේ නැති බව පසුගිය මහමැතිවරණ තේරුණා. රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා තාම මොකුත් කියලා නැහැ. තමන් ඉදිරිපත් වෙනවා කියලා. එක්කෙනා කියන ඒවා අපිට වැඩක් නැහැ. තුමා ඒ ප්‍රකාශය සිදු කරොත් තමයි ඒක පිළිගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොත්ජන පෙරමුණ අනිත් පක්ෂ කිව්වොත් තමයි ඒ පක්ෂවල සංධානයේ අපේක්ෂකයා හැටියට එතුමාට ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ.
දැනට ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන අපේක්ෂකෙක් විදියට ජනාධිපතිතුමාට හදාගන්න තැන් ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ටික හදාගත්තොත් එතුමාත් එක්ක යන්න පුළුවන්.
නැවත එනවද නැත්තම් වෙන කෙනෙක් එනවද කියන ප්‍රතිකාරණයට අමතරව මේ ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල ඒ වගේම ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහ ගත කිරීම මේ සියල්ලට මුලපිරුවේ එතුමා ඒ කරගෙන යන්නේ එතුමා. ඉතින් මේ වෙලාවේ මේ තත්ත්වයේ වෙනස් කිරීම අවශ්‍යද නැද්ද කියන එක පිළිබඳව අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. මගේ මතය නම් මේ තත්ත්වයේ මේ මොහොතේ වෙනස් කරන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයාගේ කාලය ඉවරයි. තව මාස කිහිපයකින්. එතකොට තියෙනවා විකල්ප දෙකක් මිනිස්සුන්ට. හරි අපිද JVP එකද? හරි දුර මිනිස්සු කල්පනා කරන්න වෙනවා යථාර්ථවාදීව මේ වැඩේ කාටද ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා.
මම හිතන්නේ අපේ රට අද තීරණාත්මක තැනකට අවිලා තිනවා. එක්ව වෙනසෙනවාද එක්ව නැගිටිනවාද? නව නැගිටීමක් අවශ්‍ය නව චින්තනයක් එක්ක අපේ රටට. අපි දේශපාලන බලය අත්පත් කරගන්නවා කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ පරිවර්තනය සඳහා ආරම්භය.
දැන් මේ ඊළඟට ජනාධිපතිවරණයේ අපේක්ෂකයා වෙන්න ඕනේ ආර්ථික යුද්ධය ජය ගන්න මිනිහෙක්. ආපු ගාම බුදු අම්මේ දිව්‍ය ලෝකෙම ඇවිල්ලා මල් හැදිලා, ගෙඩි හැදිලා, සතුටින් පුළුවන් අනාගතයක් හැදෙනවා කියලා සමහරු හිතන් ගන්නවා. වෙච්ච ගමන් වෙයි කියලා. වෙයි හොඳටම වෙයි.
සන්මානයේ කවුද ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයෙක් වෙන්නේ? ඒක අපි සන්දාන පිහිටවල ප්‍රකාශයටපත් කරන්න. අපිට එච්චර හදිස්සියක් නැහැ. මම වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, වෙන කෙනෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔබතුමා තමයි ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂක. ඒක ඔයාට ඕන එකක් හිතා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
Now in other news, the Yuktiya special operation continued for the 27th day today. A total of 897 suspects were arrested, while 24 suspects are yet to be investigated under detention orders. During an investigation, an individual who had 2,500 cannabis-infused narcotic capsules and 750 grams of cannabis in possession was apprehended in the Kahavatta area. Now let's take a look at the latest efforts by Sri Lanka's law enforcement agencies to curb the spread of narcotics island-wide.
Today marks the 27th day of the Yuktiya special operation, which was launched to curb the island-wide distribution of narcotics. During an investigation carried out in Kahavatta, in line with the Yuktiya special operation, an individual who had 2,500 cannabis-infused narcotic capsules and 750 grams of cannabis in possession was apprehended. Further investigations revealed that the illicit drugs in question, valued at over 600,000 rupees, were intended to be distributed among school children. In the meantime, an individual who was transporting a consignment of drugs to be distributed in Mulleriyawa was arrested in the Batalanda area in Sapugaskanda. Investigations revealed that he was a Navy deserter since 2017. The consignment included 40 grams and 400 milligrams of heroin worth 1.5 million rupees, a scale used to measure narcotics, and 2 mobile phones, which were subsequently taken into police custody. During today's iteration of the Yuktiya operation, 897 suspects were arrested. Further, 24 suspects out of today's arrestees are to be subjected to further investigation under detention orders.
Now, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has raised concerns over the anti-drug operations carried out by Sri Lankan authorities, highlighting that a heavy-handed law enforcement approach is not the solution to tackle the spread of narcotics in society. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, urged the government to review the ongoing Yuktiya operation and to implement a human rights-based approach, notably the right to health, addressing the issue of illicit drugs in society. In a statement, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights stated that authorities in Sri Lanka are adopting a heavily security-based response to the country's drug issue instead of public health policies grounded in human rights. According to the OHCHR statement, a staggering 29,000 people have reportedly been arrested on drug-related matters since the 17th of December, with allegations that some have been subjected to ill treatment and torture. They note that security forces have reportedly conducted raids without search warrants, detained suspects, drug sellers and users, with hundreds sent to military-run rehabilitation centers. The OHCHR stated that during and after these operations, people are reported to have been subjected to a number of violations, including unauthorized searches, arbitrary arrests and detention, ill treatment, torture and strip searches in public. The OHCHR states that even though drug use presents a serious challenge to the society, a heavy-handed law enforcement approach is not the solution. It added that people suspected of selling or trafficking drugs are entitled to humane treatment, with full respect for due process and transparent, fair trials. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is of the view that people who use drugs should be provided with appropriate support and programs that address the root causes of addiction and assist their reintegration into society. Further, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk urges the government of Sri Lanka to review its ongoing Yukti operation and to implement human rights-based approaches, notably in the right to health, in addressing the issues of illicit drugs in society. He also stated that allegations of abuse of authority, torture, ill treatment and denial of due process and fair trial rights must be thoroughly and impartially investigated and justice must be served. Welcome back. Now in your top business story for the evening, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says the central bank will form its policies independently in order to respond to any short to medium term exogenous and endogenous risks. Responding to queries during the annual policy statement announcement for the year 2024, the central bank chief said that the prime focus has to be in building buffers in order to avoid economic risks.
How do you assess the balance of short-term risks and the medium-term risks, domestic as well as international?
This is an election year. If there are going to be a change in the course of policies that we have so far implemented, that could be a risk. But then we should be ready to come up with relevant policy. For example, now central bank has much more autonomous in policy making. I think we should be able to form our policies independently to a situation if there are risks. For us, the risks are basically if there are inflation risks. Short term that is coming from what we see, the high taxes, short term. So we have already factored those things in. But going forward on the external side, if you look back last year, no one expected this kind of escalation of this earlier Russian, so then Middle East, this thing, and then Red Sea. All these things can all the time, there could be this kind of risk. But what's important is that for us to understand those risks and get ready and prepare. I think important one is to create buffers. That's why we ended up this situation when we were faced with those kind of external domestic shocks. We ran out of, used up all the buffers we had. So we were at the bottom of this thing. And when you don't have a buffer, there's a difference between Sri Lanka and other countries during the crisis period. Countries, for example, a lot of people talk about COVID was the issue. The tax cut was the issue, but ultimately we could have done all of these things if we had sufficient buffers in terms of foreign reserves, in terms of fiscal space, in terms of monetary space. Once we use all the buffers, we just have no choices. So that's the important one going forward, is to build up the buffers so that any external shock can come and go. But we are ready to use up even financial sector. That's why we are asking banks to build up their buffers in terms of the capital buffers, all these things, so that you can utilize in terms of a crisis, in terms of shock.
So you were talking about supporting SME sector. Just want to know what are the quick support you are going to give us in 2024?
First of all, I must say both are not central bank responsibilities. So what we can support SME sector is financial inclusion, improve financial literacy and awareness of the people, so that they make right investment and consumption decisions and right retail appraisal and right way of entrepreneurship, so that they can do business. That's through our regulated entities. Those are banks. That's why we are pushing the banks to give, that's one of the things that we have said, recovery units of affected SMEs, that give them relief as much as possible, especially when interest rates are coming down. People who can meet their obligations, the feasibility of recovering all these things, banks should be supporting that.
Now in other business news, State Minister of Investment Promotion Dilu Mamanugama discussed the expansion of bilateral trade and investment opportunities between Egypt and Sri Lanka with Egyptian Ambassador in Colombo, Magid Musleh. The matter was discussed following a courtesy call made by the Egyptian ambassador to the State Minister of Investment Promotion, Dilu Mamanugama. Further discussions were also held on expanding the opportunities for development in trade, investment and other areas, and agreements were also made to ensure that both parties receive equal benefits through the economic development in the two countries. Further, Egyptian ambassador pointed out the eastern province as an attractive destination for tourism sector investments by Egyptian investors. Now, in your latest corporate developments, Haley's Solar recently surpassed the 150 megawatt peaks of installation, setting a new national record. Indian company Pune Gas, meanwhile, announced the expansion into the Sri Lankan market through a joint venture, Lanka Gas Tech, formed in collaboration with the 3DH Group of Sri Lanka. With that, let's take a look at tonight's corporate news segment.
Haley's Solar, the renewable energy arm of Haley's Fentons, recently surpassed 150 megawatt peaks of installations, a national record for rooftop solar photovoltaic capacity in Sri Lanka, setting a new milestone in the island's transition to renewable energy. By March 2023, Haley's Solar crossed its milestone of 125 megawatts and has continued to add new rooftop solar capacity to its portfolio in various locations across the country. Its 150 megawatt peaks of solar capacity enables Haley's to save close to 151,835 tons of carbon dioxide emissions released every year. Pune Gas, a leading provider of LPG solutions, has announced its expansion into the Sri Lankan market through a joint venture, Lanka Gas Tech, formed in collaboration with the 3DH Group of Sri Lanka. This initiative comes as a response to the increasing demand for sustainable energy solutions in Sri Lanka's industrial and commercial sectors. The joint venture is set to introduce a range of LPG solutions tailored for the Sri Lankan market, focusing on converting applications from oil and diesel to LPG. Ceylon Tenny Tea Private Limited, a pioneer among the new breed of companies that take the Ceylon Tea brand to greater heights, bagged the Gold Award in the Tea and Tea Products category at the National Exports Awards 2023. Established by its managing director H.D. Tennyson George in 2013, Ceylon Tenny Tea has won international recognition within a short span of time due to its innovative and high-quality products. The company has the most consummate professionals, including experienced and decorated tea tasters, to guarantee the best product for their customers and uses the latest machinery in the production process.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of AdaDerana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for the latest developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.